Now to a battle we've seen in many forms and in many places. The clash between environmentalists who want to protect the land and the businessmen who want to develop it. But rarely does the dispute end in murder. But that's exactly what seems to have happened in a part of Argentina's immense wilderness known as the Gran Chaco. With efforts being made to turn the Great Plain into a national park, questions remain about two murders that took place there almost 3 years ago. Correspondent Daniel SCHWEIMLER traveled to an area known as the Impenetrable forest to investigate the killings.
This is La Fidelidad, a huge piece of Argentina's impenetrable forest, which is part of the Great Chaco. It's relatively untouched, but its future is uncertain as environmentalists battle to protect it from those seeking to exploit its economic potential. EMILIANO EZCURRA is one of those leading that fight with his organization, the Forest Bank.
Well, right now we are in the middle of the Impenetrable. A very rare forest. It's the biggest dry forest in the world. An area where trees can still grow with very, very little water and summers above 50 degrees Celsius. The biodiversity is considered unique. It's really a hot spot for biodiversity in many areas of the Impenetrable, and it's part of the second biggest forest in the whole of the Americas, the Great American Chaco.
La Fidelidad was protected, possibly by accident, because its Italian owner, Manuel Rosselló, simply didn't develop it. He and his brother bought the land in the 1970s when it was very cheap. When his brother died, Manuel lived a humble life in the nearby town, occasionally visiting to chop a few trees to sell as timber, despite the property now being worth millions of dollars. Then, in January 2011, Manuel Rosselló and his sister-in-law, Nelly Bartolomé, both aged 75, were murdered in their home, probably by those keen to get their hands on and develop his land. It emerged that Manuel had two children who, after his death, and with the help of local lawyer Gustavo del CORRO, set about claiming La Fidelidad as their own.
Me sorprendí de ver que había una resistencia, había una oposición.
We had a huge legal battle. We had to get DNA samples from Rosselló's body by force because the prosecutor wouldn't allow us to do it. This made us realize that there was a plot against the heirs.
Manuel Rosselló's alleged killers were caught and are being tried. It's still not clear who ordered the hit. Mr. del CORRO believes powerful forces are at work to ensure that the full truth never emerges.
The investigation was full of defects and irregularities. Evidence was missing. They were working to cover up, not to uncover who committed the crime. 3 have been accused of carrying out the murder, but there are many more involved in this crime.
The Argentine economy has been booming in recent years, largely as a result of its massive soya crop. The pressure is great to turn ever more land over to agricultural production, especially virgin forests containing millions of valuable trees. Huge swathes of the impenetrable forest have already been lost.
The rest of the Impenetrable, particularly in this region, has been a havoc, a festival of bulldozers for the last 20 years. Forest conversion was in the 80s and 90s above 40 football fields per hour. The technology to destroy the forest is today very efficient, unfortunately, and the expansion of soya monocultures and other cash crops and also cattle ventures was enormous.
The Forest Bank, other Argentine organizations and the local and provincial governments have joined forces. Firstly, to raise the $12 million needed to buy La Fidelidad from Manuel Rosselló's children, then to turn it into a national park. To do that, the Forest Bank is using a novel fundraising scheme in which investors can buy online a hectare or more of land and then monitor their purchase on Google Maps. The eventual aim is to turn La Fidelidad into a well-protected national park for those more hardy adventure tourists hoping to experience nature in its most natural and sometimes uncomfortable form. Sunrise in the impenetrable forest. What could be more sublime? But it's a sight that few have had the privilege to witness. When La Fidelidad becomes a national park, the doors will open so that more people will be allowed to enjoy this phenomenal beauty. This camp has been set up on the edge of La Fidelidad for scientists to study the region's environmental riches. Our arrival was heralded by these monkeys. While trip cameras like this one captures some of these rarely seen, often endangered forest inhabitants. Lucas Dama is a naturalist who has seen some of the evidence.
We've captured pigs, pumas, the giant armadillo, which is an emblematic animal in danger of extinction, the maned wolf in great numbers, anteaters, there's everything.
There are few untouched regions of the forest left in the world, certainly not the size of La Fidelidad. And those that do remain are nearly all under threat, requiring concerted and original action by campaigners to save and protect them.